Hello and welcome back to the Remote CEO podcast. Today I am joined by Tara Fisher, who is an energetic strategist and psychic medium. She empowers six-figure female entrepreneurs to thrive as their most authentic selves, deeply rooted into abundance, and shift into a soul-led success. As an expert in all things financial freedom, feminine leadership, spiritual alignment, and sustainable business growth, she specializes in helping her clients step into their true potential and embody real wealth and find business strategies that work for them. I'm really excited because I'm very much intertwined with spiritual and business world. So this is probably going to be like the perfect conversation for us to free flow through. So welcome, Tara. Thanks for joining me. Do you want to share a little bit more about yourself, your background, and kind of what's brought you on this journey?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I mean, obviously, we've been connected on socials before and just love how aligned we are with spirituality and business and all of that. So, this is going to be a wonderful conversation. Yeah, so I mean, I think there's two sides to my story. Like, for one, the spiritual kind of journey, and then the business journey and how everything merged together. So for me, it really started that back in 2019, I believe. I was living in Portugal, and at the time, I had basically already manifested my dream life, the vision I held all through my teenage years. I was living it. I was traveling the world. I was working as a surf instructor. I was being creative, launched a cookbook, and like wrote a travel slash self-development blog, and like did all the things basically. And to me, that was like such a magical moment because I was like, wow, like this whole manifestation stuff actually works. And back then I didn't even know the term manifestation yet. I just realized I had just created my dream life and I was living it. And at this epiphany moment where I was on the ferry across the river into the city center in Lisbon, and I was like, more people need to experience this. More people need to experience this joy. And I just felt this deep desire to empower people to have this beautiful, most amazing experience of life that I had curated for myself. And of course, it was struggle, right? I also was just coming out of a emotional abusive relationship, and I had other things that I worked like body image issues and stuff. But I really felt like I was somehow in control of even my emotional world, and I had tools and I knew how to kind of cope with things, and it wouldn't affect neither my experience of life, so I was still able to enjoy it. And then also I was able to attract what I wanted to have in my life moving forward. And that was kind of the start where I started sharing online. I mean, I had the blog before and I shared about my travels, but that was really the moment where I started sharing more about manifestation and like personal growth, mindset, and all of that. And then all this kind of came to like a full stop when COVID happened, because obviously we can't travel or couldn't travel when COVID happened. And so that was a really hard time for me. And I kind of fell into a like black hole in a way where I did develop a little bit of depression and just had like a really bad quarter life crisis. Out of that, I actually started my business, not necessarily from the perspective of I had so much pain and now I alchemize it and I want to help other people, but really more from the place of, okay, I want to go back to the life that I lived because it was so in alignment. So, what's the best way to get there? And I did know before that I wanted to be self employed because my family is self employed. And yeah, so that was kind of the start of the business. And I did start in like mindset, personal development, manifestation, and that kind of niche. And then through my business journey, I just had so many ups and downs, especially in the first couple of years of business. It was really, really hard. And so when I then like there was a moment in the beginning of 2022 where I started to get more into like wealth energetics and like money mindset work and these things. And that was also the moment where I really started to connect spirituality with just wealth and business. And that was the moment where it really made click and where basically my whole business just started to turn and the reality within my business started to shift. And that was when I then started to like lean more into just you know, the conjunction between business and spirituality. And then even just recently, like last year, I was going through a really big pivot year where I realized that although I was applying spirituality to business and manifestation to business, I was still so much in my masculine energy. And so that kind of led me to like a whole other transformation, where I really started to then apply the whole feminine energy in like an even deeper layer of spirituality to business, basically.
Amazing. I love that. It sounds like a very similar journey to mine, honestly. I don't talk so much about like my spiritual journey because most of the things that people know me for are more from like a business perspective. But like I am very much into like that spiritual world, manifestation. I've been working through so many under subconscious beliefs over the past few years so that I can step into this world of abundance basically and feel more abundant and be able to manifest the things that I want into my life in business and in life, in relationships, all of the things. And I really resonate with what you're saying around like you still feel like you're really in your masculine energy and you wanted to step more into your feminine. Like I'm at that point right now where I'm like I'm so much in the yang all the time because I'm having to run the business, do all the things, and I really just want to step into the yin, honestly. Like that is how I'm trying to set my business up to allow me to step more into that yin. So I completely resonate with that story. And like after your kind of transformation pivot last year, like where do you feel like you're at today with like what kind of services offerings are you working with clients on at the moment in your business?
Yeah, so there, like last year was such an interesting time, and it was so contradictive to how most people really do business or will suggest doing business. So what happened basically was I archived 95% of my offer suite. So basically, I only have like really one offer available at the moment, and then a couple a couple mini offers. So my only offer is my private mentorship, which is at the moment a 3-month mentorship, but it is also in transition. And then I do have single sessions available just for those who are not ready or for previous clients who don't feel like they need the long-term support at the moment. But that's literally it. Like I don't have any fancy other programs or containers available because I realized that what I was truly passionate about is the deep connection, and I thrive as a mentor in that, personal one-to-one support. And that is what I allow myself to really hone in on, and lean into and fully bet on, versus where probably everyone else, every business coach out there would have probably suggested to like have an on demand or whatever. But yeah, I just learned last year that it doesn't serve you to continue doing offers that you're not excited about, because at the end of the day, you're gonna not have people in that, and that's gonna cause trauma, then will prevent you from actually selling the stuff that you're passionate about serving in.
For sure. You're preaching to the choir. This is everything that I stand for. It's like, why are you doing things that you don't enjoy, or that serve you no benefit to yourself? Like at the end of the day, we spend like 80% of our lives working, right? Like why would we make that an unenjoyable place to be? Like why would we not try and, if we're starting our own business, why would we not try and make that to be something that feels really aligned with what we're trying to do? So I completely agree with you. Like that you put out there has to be something that you truly are passionate about and that you feel good about and that you really want to speak about, because it's so hard. And I spoke about this on another podcast quite recently, but like it is so hard to sell something that you're not fully passionate about. So there's just no point. Like, and like you say, you'll feel disheartened by people not signing up to the thing because they can sense the energy that you're not 100% into that thing. So I think it's clearly like the right strategy from my perspective also. And I get what you're saying around like there will be other people that like disagree with that, but I'm all about trying to create as much freedom for yourself in your business, and freedom also means happiness and joy and the fact that you enjoy what you're doing. So clearly like that's a very core value for you also. Like you've gone on your own journey to try and find the thing that works really well for you. And I think, yeah, for me, that's super, super important. And why do you think it is that so many people like don't stay true to themselves? Because it is like when I speak about this on LinkedIn, for example, I have so many people being like, wow, like this is such an interesting concept. And I'm like, but it's not. It's actually just really basic. Like if you like to do the thing that you're doing, you're going to be more successful at it. It's like, so why do you think so many people have this resistance? Do you think it's just conditioning?
I think it's fear most of the time, because at the end of the day, we all really desire to be successful. We all really desire to make this work. And so I do believe that every heartfelt, like passionate woman or even men in business, we're gonna go above and beyond and do anything possible to make this work because we really want this. And then the other part is there is obviously the need to make money, right? We all need to some extent a certain amount of money to live in this world. And so these two things together will make us do things that we know aren't the right thing to do, but regardless, we're going to do them because we hope that they're going to lead us to the place where we are financially free and where we live the life that we're desiring, or lead the business, have the career that we are desiring. And I think that too little people have actually figured out how to create those two things in a way that is really truly aligned to them. And so they will grab every advice, every piece of action, every thing that could potentially go get them there, and they will try it and do it. And that to me, I think creates such a not helpful scenario, because then the things won't work for them because they haven't really put thought into whether they work for them, or they're not approaching it with the right energy. And so they will not attract the results that they're desiring. And then they will develop doubts and like worries and trauma around it, because they'll be creating a story around it of like, everything I do doesn't work, this is not meant for me, and all this stuff. And that then will lead them to like push their desires and the success even further away, when in reality all they needed to be doing from the start is to really listen to their intuitive guidance and get like the spiritual guidance that they needed in terms of the actions that they need to be taking, and the business strategy that will support them on forging their very own path to their very unique vision of life and business.
Yeah. I think another thing, like you just mentioned a word there that just triggered something in my head, like intuition, right? Like our intuition. Everybody has an intuition, everybody gets gut feelings, but we have as a society been kind of conditioned to not listen to that and go with our head. So I think like a big part of it is trusting what you're feeling is right. Like the amount of people that I speak to that are like, oh, I really thought that this was going to be the thing that I wanted to do, but I always knew that this was the thing that I should have been doing. It's like we always go back around to the thing that we first originally thought about, and that was our intuition trying to guide us on the right path at that moment in time. But sometimes people have to venture through all of these other paths to try and get there. So I think that there's definitely a big part of that is down to that, like intuition, and trying to just trust the fact that if you've thought it once, like it could actually, or it's coming up for you in multiple different ways, that could be something to explore. And I think we need to trust, go after those feelings a little bit more and trust ourselves, because ultimately we know ourselves better than anybody else. We should be able to trust ourselves without that external dialogue going on and guiding our decisions for us, because that's never
Yeah.
good. I would be really interested to know, we've obviously spoken about spirituality, manifestation, abundance, like can you summarize like what that means for you, because I think everybody has like a different interpretation of some of these things, so it'd be really interesting to hear like your
Yeah, so I personally, I believe in the universe, higher self, spirit guides, angels, all that stuff is kind of my belief. Although I do honor and accept that it's probably all the same. So even if someone refers to it as God or whatnot, I do believe it's all like we, at the end of the day, refer all to the same kind of power, just have different terms to describe it that resonate most with us. And then when it comes to like the business context, I often refer to spiritual guidance in the way of, yes, like for part, like being spiritual in business or applying spirituality to business is for part trusting yourself. It's also for part just letting yourself be led in a more extended way. You could also probably say that leading with your feminine energy, allowing yourself to flow and just go wherever needed, or like allowing your creativity to be kind of the drive in business to be to some extent spiritual. But I also very specifically refer to asking those higher powers for guidance, and to really not just trust yourself, but also trust those higher powers. Trust the fact that you're led, that you're not doing this by yourself, right? Trust in the other component of the co-creation process that eventually, brings opportunities your way or makes things work out that you had no idea how they could potentially work out, right? So I personally believe that in business and in life, we are not on our own on this journey. There's always an invisible force that is guiding us, that's leading us, that's working with us. And that is a power that we can tap into through, for example, our intuition, or through people like myself, psychic mediums or channels or anything like that. Also, like tools like meditation or tarot and all these things can like help us tap into that universal collective energy that has wisdom that will help us to trust ourselves more, to build more confidence within our own decision making. But it will also help us move through and navigate through times where we literally have no idea how things can possibly work out. And they will give us hope, and they will give us strength and allow us to stay on our path. Because what I see happen a lot is in times like that, where we have tried everything or just, there's like get like stone road bumps in our path, and we have no idea why all of a sudden all these road bumps appear. Those are the times where we then turn for external advices, where we are like, okay, we need to do all the courses, or we need to get all this external advice. We consume everything on social media and apply it because we are clueless ourselves. And that is for me the moment where usually we get led astray from our path, and where we then get into the hypermasculinity, or even like actions, strategies that are not fully aligned with who we are and how we want to lead in business, versus if in that time we would actually be able to sit down, be patient, lean back, get comfortable with sitting with whatever uncomfortable emotions arise, and trust in the path, and trust that we are guided, then we could stay in our lane, and we could just, when things have, sorted itself out, or when we have an idea and what to do to kind of resolve that challenge, we could just continue on our path. And that kind of requires this trust and this connection with a higher power.
I completely agree. Like, my definition of that would be more or less the same as what you've just said. And it's interesting because like I grew up very non-religious. Like, there was no religious in my whole family. My granddad did go to church, but like he didn't practice actively like religion, or like didn't preach it to us kind of thing. It was very much just like, no, like you don't have to believe in anything unless you want to kind of thing. And then it wasn't until that I was in my like early 30s that I was like, oh, okay, like, but actually having nothing to believe in is actually sometimes a little bit scary, because like you mentioned, it gives you hope. It allows you to trust the process more, like because you believe that everything is going to be okay, because you have this higher power kind of guiding you in the way that you're meant to be going on, right? So I feel like for me, I definitely resonate with the fact that it gave me a little bit of hope to find some kind of like spiritual path and start believing in manifestation, the universe, the fact that in my thoughts, my opinion, there is like an end goal for all of us, like that's kind of predetermined. This is my belief, like not everyone's going to have this same belief, but I do believe that there is a predetermined end goal for all of us that we are working our way towards, and there are right or wrong ways to go, but we don't necessarily have to choose the right or wrong path. We can go all the way around the different paths to choose, because we've all got our own free will, and we can all take whatever path that we want to get to. That end goal is usually a goal that we have consciously, that we actually want for ourselves anyway, but we might just go on a million different detours to eventually end up at that same place, and that's also okay. But to have that kind of like thought of like, oh, someone is guiding me, or like, oh, if I trust the process that this is all going to work out, I am going to reach this goal regardless of which path I choose, it really actually helps us make better decisions and be more decisive, because I think sometimes inaction comes from indecision. And I think it allows us to take the next step forward, trusting that we are eventually going to get there, regardless of which route we take. So yeah, I would completely agree with your definition. And I've been practicing manifestation for at least the past 3 years, and I've seen it practiced in so many different ways, but ultimately the core of it is to take aligned action to get you to the thing that you want, right? Like ultimately. So, and I think you have to have that hope and that trust in order to be able to take those decisions and move those actions forward. In what way do you practice manifestation within your business, and like getting you to where you want, but also with your clients? Is that something that you work on with them also?
Yeah, so I practice it in a very similar way to you. I think the concept of manifestation is very easy. Intention plus action leads to the result, right? So you have to approach the action, whatever you're doing, with the right energy and the right intention, and then it'll eventually lead you there. So I absolutely practice that. And for me, like I said before, just having a big trust in being guided and not being alone on this journey is for me a big part of how I practice manifestation in business. For me, it's also a lot about like consciously tapping into collective wisdom, where, for example, and that kind of came up when you were speaking, a lot of the times I see also like inaction happen, or, you know, in a way, or like delays in a way caused by not fully, yeah, like trusting yourself, not fully like standing behind what you're doing. And it's clear that not every action will lead you directly to where you want to go. Like, we all have detours in life, but it is very important to be firm in the actions that you're taking and be like, okay, even if that might be a mistake in quotation marks, I'm going to learn something from it. It's going to be a valuable aspect of this journey that in the long run, in whatever way, will benefit me to, like you said, get to this overall end goal. But what I see happen a lot is people then second guess themselves or doubt themselves in that process. And so sometimes when you have these big questions of, you know, do I invest in this really big container, for example, or do I archive my entire office? Like, is this really right? I think it's sometimes very hard to muster up the strength and the confidence to make this decision by ourselves, which is also why, you know, mentorship and all that stuff is so powerful. But for me, it's also powerful to just tune into this collective wisdom, to be able to understand the energies that I'm working with better, to be able to understand, okay, what is going on within myself, within my own energetic field, but also what's going on within the energetic field of, you know, my world, so that I can work with them in the best way. And it's not like they tell me what to do. It's just like you get more like hints of, you know, why don't you look at the situation in this way? Like, something that happened to me recently is I got really triggered by someone on social media because the way they're doing their content is very much so how I would want to do my content, but a part of me felt like I wasn't capable of. And so before, you know, 3-4 years ago, this would have, you know, let me down Riverside, like to the bottom and totally spiraling. And I would have probably second guessed and then ended up copying them because I just unconsciously wanted to be like them. Now I deal with this in a very different way, where I look at the situation. I firstly allow myself to sit with that. Like, it's so uncomfortable, but the emotions get to be there, and they get to be there for days if they need to, for me to actually process. And then I'll tap into collective consciousness and look at, okay, how can I see this situation differently? And because sometimes our perspective is so narrow-minded, it's hard to get to that other perspective that's really going to shift things, shift energies for us, unless someone points it out or we have this spiritual guidance that helps us see things differently. So I tune into it. I realized what I just told you, that deep down inside, I just wanted to be like that. And I didn't believe that this was available to me, that I was actually capable of doing this. That knowledge, that wisdom now allowed me to completely alchemize the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness that I felt from that scenario. And I could then turn it into power and could be like, okay, no, actually, I'm very much capable. So who do I need to be? What do I need to be doing to be able to create that content, right? To become that person that vibrates on that frequency. So my output generates that emotion that, that person was transmitting to me through their content. So that is just like a very basic example, basically.
No, it's perfect. It makes a lot of sense. It's going back to the manifestation piece. Yes, there is like taking that action, but also it's reprogramming those beliefs about ourselves, right? Like we have to actually, if we believe something to be true about ourselves, that we can't do something, or I'm not good enough to show up in the same way as this girl that's showing up on social media, then we'll never take that action because we're stuck in that limiting belief thought process. We have to also shift those beliefs into new beliefs, more empowering beliefs that make us feel more aligned with the version that we want to become, and then we can kind of take that aligned action, and that's when it all kind of like falls into place, I feel like, from there. And something else that I've seen you talk a lot about is like abundance, and talk to me a little bit about more about like how can we step more into like that abundance mindset to be able to feel like we're worthy of the things that we want.
Yeah. Abundance is such a passionate topic for me to talk about. I do think that to abundance, and I know that you refer to it at the moment as like a frequency and energy, and there is definitely the energetic piece to it, but there's also the strategic piece to it. So to answer your question, how can we step into the frequency of abundance and to be to feel worthy of it? I think for most people, it's the overall understanding of that it is an energy. It's not more, not less than anything else that we have in our world. It's no more or less than a gift that you give or an act of service that you do, right? It's not more or not less. It just is similar energy, and understanding that everything you do, like the time that you're giving, for example, or the help that you're offering someone, or even in nature, the amount of flowers and trees and animals and everything that is out there is infinite. And so the availability of money is also infinite, and you're just as much capable of receiving it or getting it as you're capable of receiving or giving time or money, right? Time or any like act of service. So it's just understanding that it is an energy, and it works in the same way any energy works. It needs to be directed in a certain way, through intention, and it is in constant flow. So what I see a lot of people do when it comes to like just abundance in general as an energy is they will push it out because they think it's not wanting to come to them, and so they're like actually refusing the natural inflow of abundance because they're like telling themselves these stories of it's a limited resource, or it's not available to me because XYZ, or I'm not worthy of it. So if we set aside these stories and just understand that it is flowing to us just as much as it's flowing out of us, out of our world, that is kind of the first step to opening yourself up to the energy flow of abundance. And then there is like the strategic piece of the more you actually understand money and abundance strategically. So what does it actually take for you to get abundant, like financially abundant? Because obviously there is the abundance of food, abundance of, love, of whatever, but like understand strategically what it takes to get to a financially abundant place. That'll help you with the frequency of abundance already. Because if you approach money strategically, if you're actually make yourself a savings plan, for example, or set yourself a goal of, okay, and that's something I actually did where I was like, okay, if I have K on each of my accounts, so my personal account, my business account, and my savings account, that's probably a place where I would feel really abundant. And that's just a number that I made up where I tuned into my own body and my own nervous system and was like, okay, how much money would it actually take for me to feel good and to feel abundant and taken care of? And so I came up with that number. And then I made a strategic plan of, okay, how much of my income would I have to save to achieve that goal. And for me, it was like, okay, I wanted to get there as fast as possible. So I literally, for a certain amount of time, set the intention to save 90% of my income. So everything that I wasn't spending on bills that were absolutely necessary, I was saving. And that was how I basically got to the goal within, 2-3 months. That to me, like just setting the intention to actually accumulate abundance, like physically, then also opened myself up to rise to higher frequency within the energy of abundance, which then also led to me attracting more money. Because now I was like, okay, money gets to stay. Like money is actually welcome in my world. Money is actually like, I love money. It's actually like, I love spending time around it. And so I, understated that with the action of saving, of keeping it. And then the universe, or like, the whole manifestation again applied of like, now I was on the frequency of I'm rich basically. And so more money was flowing to me because I was like actually vibrating, sending out that energy.
Yeah, definitely. If you feel like you have everything and more than you want, like naturally, and you feel grateful for that, like naturally you're putting out to bring more in. And I think a lot of people, myself included, sometimes operate on like a lack mentality, right? Like, and that could just be our programming, our conditioning, or it could be that we've had that experience in the past, or it could be that we are struggling and we do feel like that lack. But it is very hard to then attract in more if we are feeling in that lack frequency, from my personal experiences. So I think, yeah, it is really important to have the energy side and also that strategy side. I think that makes for a very good combination in terms of like money mindset and being able to feel that abundance from all aspects, particularly in business. So yeah, I feel like that's super, super, super important actually. And it's just actually been a very good, as you were talking, I was like, there's something in my world that I need to shift from that perspective also, because I think I'm very guilty of like sometimes sitting in that lack mindset when actually it's not a reality. It's just it's a trauma, it's a conditioning to be in that place when I need to shift my own mindset from that as well.
Yeah, I think that, sorry, just one more thing that I wanted to add to that. I think that a lot of people always ask themselves how they get there, right? When they look at someone who is like really successful in business, making a lot of money. And it's actually that they've mastered exactly that, because once you've reached that tipping point where you have enough like actual abundance in your bank account that you're like taken care of and don't have to worry, you naturally switch into that, okay, I'm taken care of. And a lot of people think that creating abundance is about actually feeling abundant and actually feeling in overflow, but it's not. It's about feeling safe and secure with money, because when you're feeling safe and secure with money, then you're not operating from lack anymore, and then you can attract that. And so it's really about getting to that place of building safety and security around money. And the best way to do that is not through energy work, it's through strategy. Because when you actually have physical money there laying around with no purpose, you'd be like, anything in the world could happen right now, I'm taken care of, I don't have to worry. And then you can switch into the energy of abundance, and that actually most of the time happens naturally. And then that kind of kicks up of this whole cycle of now you're really attracting the abundance.
Yeah, for sure. Like definitely. Do you think like from that like abundance perspective, because it obviously we talked earlier about like masculine and feminine energy, right? Like yang, yin, yang. So it's like when you're in that yang energy and we're like hustling, do you feel like that there is anything there that's attached to that lack of abundance? Like do those two have anything to do with that abundance? What am I trying to say? Like that abundance piece. Should we be more in our yin to see that attraction come in, or is it okay to kind of be in the yang energy?
Yes and no. So I definitely think that the unconscious pattern behind hustling is lack. I definitely see that, because especially as women, if we didn't believe we didn't have enough money right now, we wouldn't be hustling so much. If we actually believed we had enough, then we'd probably make decisions entirely different, and we would probably spend a majority of our time differently, or at least we would approach the things that we're doing from a different energy of, yeah, you can work hard still, you can work if that's what you want. I'm a generator. I have no problem whatsoever to work a lot, but the energy with which I work is different when I'm in this hustle mindset versus when I'm in my soft, like feminine kind of just being dedicated, being passionate, being devoted to what I'm doing. So that hustle is definitely coming from lack, which then obviously can just attract more lack. But I do believe that we need masculine energy to actually be able to build abundance. And in the way that I just described it, because strategy is masculine, logic is masculine. Having that container, taking the proactive action to actually save, manage your finances, that's masculine energy. We just need a healthy masculine, and we need not to necessarily embody the masculine, but allow the masculine to surround us, to be the container that lets us be in the feminine, right? Because if we have the strategy set up, if we have the savings plan set up, if we have the details of how much we're making and how much we need to save to get to the goal figured out, then we can lean back, go out, play, do fun things, nurture the offers that we're actually passionate about, and the abundance will flow to us. But we need that masculine container, the masculine structure around it for it to work.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So it is literally, you can't have yin without the yang, right? So you need both. And that makes perfect sense. So when your clients come to you and they want to kind of scale their business and they are wanting to go after a less like hustle culture approach and go more into this, like, let's trust the process, like, let's take aligned action and get to where we want to be, and like be a bit more like soul-led, purpose-led, what are some practical action steps that you usually take them through to kind of get back onto that path?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we usually make some sort of an inventory if the client hasn't done that by themselves. So there's a lot of clients that come to me that have already a very big degree of awareness. So they know what doesn't work for them, what needs to change. But if a client comes to me that doesn't have that, that just feels like, okay, something needs to change, this doesn't work for me anymore, we will do an inventory and we will look at, okay, what are the things in your business that actually feel like they're draining you, or they feel forced, or they feel out of alignment? And that's kind of what I did for myself as well. When I was in my pivot phase, I was writing down everything that I hated about my business, basically, from the offers to the clients that I was working with to the way I was showing up online, and like all the things that just made me feel like I can't do this, that made me want to quit. And so when we have that list, we can slowly look at, okay, how can we shift things, or what maybe needs to be replaced with something else? And that is where then the energy work and the spiritual work starts happening, because oftentimes what happens a lot, for example, is people feeling unaligned with the way they're showing up online, because they feel like they have to be present all the time, they have to create content all the time, it's not really aligned, and the way they're creating content feels forced. And so that is then where we start uncovering, okay, why do you feel you need to be creating content in this way, right? And that's where we uncover the whole conditioning and the whole kind of belief system that each client individually has around what they believe they need to be doing. And then we can shift that and find a different truth to basically nurture that is more aligned with how they want to feel doing this action. And then we'll shift the action to undermine this new belief, this new truth.
Yeah, makes sense. I went through a very similar process last year when I transitioned from doing e-commerce mentoring to just more like general online business mentoring. And it was very much like, right, well, what doesn't align with me? For sure, the social media thing comes up, right? Like, I think to me, it's actually crazy that anybody is even doing social media, because I've not spoken, maybe like 10% of people I speak to enjoy what they're doing on social media. And it's actually crazy to me that so many of us are just like going on autopilot to create this content because we think that that's what people need and want. And to some degree, yes, there is a big portion of people that buy from social media and get to know you through social media. I get it, but like at the same time, it's like, why are so many people doing something that they don't want to do? It makes no sense. And I get it, like we're being told that that's what we should do, but I personally in my business am really trying to, I am still showing up on social media. Like I do believe that there is an element of that does need to stay there, but at the same time it's not my main priority. My main priority is elsewhere now. Like I've got other marketing channels that are driving traffic to the places that I need them to be driving traffic. I've got different strategies. Social media is just like the cherry on top, like the little sprinkle. If I have time for it, it's coming through, and I'm trying to make more time for it because I think it is still important. But equally, I don't want that to be my primary marketing channel. No, it doesn't work for me. It's not my thing. So why would I do something, as I said earlier, that I don't enjoy doing? It makes no sense. The way that you structured that with your clients, what you just said, like that's definitely something that the process that I literally went through last year when I wanted to make that transition, doing a bit of an audit of like, what do you enjoy doing? What is giving you energy? What is sucking your energy? Can you do less of the sucking energy? Can you delegate some of the things that are sucking your energy? Or like, what are the things that you need to do versus the wants to do? And then you can kind of determine your plan of action from there, I think. So that was really great advice. And in terms of yourself then, like how have you got any like key practices like from like a spiritual standpoint or any or practical standpoint also that you put into place to keep yourself in alignment and in check whilst you're running your own business?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, I just try to embody the beliefs that I have as much as possible in any given moment. And so for me, that'll look like, for example, which is actually something that I realized recently that I needed to be doing even more, is to like actually make every moment of my life a bit more like romanticized, a little bit more magical, right? Because so often when we have, packed days, busy days, we, sit in front of the computer and without noticing, just time flies and it's evening and we haven't taken a breath, right? And so just really seeding in that conscious time to reconnect, to tune in, to actually feel what's just going on, right? And for example, another way of how this shows up is when I notice I'm being triggered or something comes up, instead of pushing the emotion away and ignoring it and basically pretending like nothing happened and just continuing with what was on my list, I would just actually pause for a moment and allow myself to feel it. I'm not gonna always go deep into it and like do a whole like reading on it and everything, but I will make some notes. I will give myself a moment to actually feel that and acknowledge it. And then I will maybe make a note to come back to it later in the evening when I have a bit more space. So that's something. Or I will visualize continuously. So every time I'm on my walk or, in the car, I'll just visualize. I'll just tune into the energy of who I want to be or like who I'm in the process of becoming and the vision that I'm building. And then I do have like specific like dedicated practices as well. I always have a morning routine. It does shift like what I'm doing. I always have like a prayer that I say to connect with spirit and to kind of set the energy and the intention for the day. That's like a bare minimum. That takes like a minute and I can do it from anywhere. And then yeah, depending on how much time I have or the mood that I'm in, I'll do tapping or a meditation, something like that. And the evening kind of looks similar where I have my toolkit of, meditation, Reiki, whatnot, and I will just listen and see what I want to do today. Sometimes that's like I journal and I pull some cards, or sometimes I do Reiki, or sometimes I go on my acupressure mat and just lay there for like 20 minutes, breathing into the pain to kind of release energy. Sometimes I do stretching, sometimes I do tapping. It really depends. Another aspect is I do have continuous mentorship myself. So I do have a spiritual mentor myself, and just connecting with them every 2 weeks is so good for me because it actually helps to get some of that extra layer of connection, especially in areas or with topics, subjects that I myself can't move past alone. Yeah, so that's kind of the basic way it looks for me.
Amazing. No, I think that's very similar to the kind of things that I also practice. I feel like there's a lot of like synchronicity here, so I completely resonate with that, and I think it's really good for other people to listen to like what does somebody's routine look like to make them feel like they are able to live these like soul-led, purpose-driven businesses, because a lot of people get stuck waking up, let's go straight to work, let's go to bed straight after we finish work. Like, no, we can actually also enjoy our lives. That's the point. Like, if we've started a business, so many people start that business to create more freedom in their life, but then actually they start creating themselves a job rather than a business. And actually, if we can take those times, even if it is just an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, for ourselves to set ourselves up ready for the day ahead and set ourselves up to get a restful sleep at night, like, I think that that's really important. And to talk about these things is really important to help other people know that it's okay to do that as well. It's not something that you have to just dive straight into your day. If you're running your own business, you're controlling your own time, use that to your advantage, control your time wisely and in a way that works better for you. So thank you for sharing that. That was super helpful. And thank you for all of your insights today. That's been incredible. So if anyone wants to find you and listen to you and learn more about what you do, how can someone connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way to find me is still Instagram. My handle is tara.fisher. I won't respond every day to my messages. I'm going to be real, but I respond at least once a week or twice a week. But yeah, if you want to connect, you can find me there. I also have a podcast called the Be Magnetic Podcast. I dive deeper into all things energy, work around business there. So, and like abundance, money, all of that. So you can check that out. And yeah, that's about it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was a really great conversation, and I love how many alignments we've had here.